All right. And I did start the recording. Okay, welcome back everyone. This is part 2 of our first week's live session. We are going to go over week 1, overview, details, and demos for the things that we're going to be doing this week. If you are wondering about the class overall, watch part 1, where I go over the expectations and we do an overview of the class, the things that we'll be learning about and talking about, and the required sessions and how to find all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so we've got a group of people here, a group of excited typographers that are ready to go. So let's, without any further delay, let's go into week 1. All right, we're going to go over the media, the discussion, the assignment, and the assessment. So the theory lecture or the pre-recorded lecture that you need to watch before you get started on any of your assignments this week, I would watch it before you even do your discussion so that you have a little bit more background on the information that's in the discussion, is watching week 1's theory lecture. So that one covers what is typography, why it's important, how it's used in graphic design, and some type foundations and terminology. Anatomy, sizing, classifications, types of shapes, and terminology and typography tools. You will need to know all of this to be able to do the assessment correctly. So, it's good background information for the other things that we're going to be doing this week as well. So make sure you watch that. All right, so now let's see here. Let's actually go back to the classroom here. And I'm going to just walk through things this way. So here's week 1. And this week's learning objectives in typography basics is distinguishing characteristics of a font to define the quality of its personality. You'll be talking about that in the discussion. Identify the anatomy of the letter form, standard type terminology. You'll need to know that for the for pretty much, we'll kind of be talking about that throughout everything, including 5 features of a font family and its development and use. And then we're also going to produce some creative imagery using only letter forms. So the course media this week kind of showed you in the previous lecture in here, but here's that pre-recorded lecture that you want to watch. That's covering all the information. And then there's some other information here too. An article, What is in a Font, from Adobe's blog, what fonts are and why they're so important. There is the type primer. And this one here is, I think you should download this and keep it handy. You don't have to read through everything in this this week. But it's almost like a little extra textbook for you to use. So keep this handy. You'll see that it has chapters in here and topics and information that also will be covered in the pre-recorded lecture. But one thing that I think is good that this one has in it, and you are recommended to read certain parts, certain weeks, but here in the end, there's a glossary of typographic terms. So if you're wondering sometimes what some of these terms mean, and there might even be part of the quizzes, you can find those in here. So, so download this type primer, and these are the chapters or the sections that you need to cover this week. And then there is some great information in lynda.com on typography. Most of the lynda.com playlists and sections are taken from This one with Justin Seeley, Introduction to Typography, and some from Ina Saltz where she talks about different typography things as well. And these are really, really great videos. So those are some other ones that you might want to, you know, keep handy, that you can refer back to them and go over the information that's in there. But like I said, most of it will kind of be recapped in this to our lecture right here. So this one is the most important one for you guys to watch this week. All right, now the discussion is about the value of classic fonts. So make sure that you read the background information and the other information here. And it's discussed in that pre-recorded lecture as well. But just to kind of clarify what you need to do is that you're going to pick one of the following classic typeface families. So there's a list right here. Now, most of you will probably have access to these in your system fonts on your computer already. If there's one that you don't have, just pick a different one. That's why the list is pretty long, is so that I'm sure you're going to have access to at least one or two of these so that you have some to choose from. Okay. Then you want to go in and research the history of these fonts and find an example of how it's been used in a prominent commercial way, like branding, advertising, packaging, or so forth. Okay. Study the font carefully, pay attention to its shapes and features, what it looks like, and then you want to cover, you know, these different topics in your post. You need to put the name of the font, the designer, when it was created, a screenshot of the commercial example that you found in your post, and again, how to embed it is listed in the announcements, and why you think that the font was chosen for this job. And when you are discussing the font, then you want to talk about its classification and some five features, like its X height, its ascenders, descenders, stress, serif, strokes, and thicknesses, and how you think that affects the font. Now, some of these words are probably new to you and you don't understand what they are. But if you watch the pre-recorded session, it's all explained in there. Now, who was it that had watched the lecture here? I can't remember. Samantha, was that you? You can verify, right, that it goes over things like X heights, ascenders, descenders, all of that stuff. Hopefully you remember. Okay. So that's why it's important that you watch that lecture before you start doing your discussion, or you're not going to be able to cover the things that are asked of you here. Yeah, it will make it a lot easier for you to understand it. Okay, there is a little, I embedded this little video in here. It's from that lecture, but I just thought that it was kind of helpful to give you a little bit of hint, and also gave you a couple of links that you can use for your font research. Fonts.com, I Love Typography, lists a lot of these fonts and a lot of background information on them. But you can also just Google the history of whatever font, and you'll probably get a lot of information that way as well. Okay. All right, any questions about the discussion? Hopefully not. Doesn't sound like it. All right, let's move on to the assignment then. All right, so for the assignment, you are going to create a typeface portrait. And this is going to be kind of a fun exercise just to kind of get you guys used to using the type tools, finding fonts, and taking a look at letters as shapes, because that's all they are. Letters are just shapes, and they represent a sound, and that's how we put them together to make words and written text, right? So when you are using text as a designer, you are communicating with those shapes somehow. And you probably notice how these shapes, like the letter A, for example, looks very different depending on the font you're using. So, and each one of these fonts kind of have a personality, just like a person. And so, so that's what we're going to be playing with this week, is kind of figuring out the personality of that font and creating an image of that personality. The little video that's embedded right here kind of shows you some fun ways that artists have used letter forms to create illustrations. And I think we might as well just take a little quick look at it right here. Let's see, I'm actually just going to go to YouTube so we can see it a little bit bigger. Can you guys see it? I got to double check that it's sharing the screen good. Can you guys see it? Okay, I might not play the whole thing, but I just want to give you a little sneak peek, okay? All right, are you guys kind of getting the drift? You kind of seeing what's happening there? All right, so this is animated and really cool. But did you notice how they take the letter forms of, then they're actually just using the letters of these words and then kind of using them as shapes to create these different animals, okay? Really kind of cool, right? All right. So you can watch the whole video to get a little bit of inspiration, but we're going to do something similar for the assignment this week. You are not going to create animals, and you're not going to be limited to specific letters, but you are going to be limited to a specific font. And you're going to choose the font. If you want to choose the same font that you researched in the discussion, that might be a good idea, because then you will understand a little bit more about the background, and you will have looked at the shapes of the letters and all of that kind of stuff a little bit more. But if you don't want to, if you want to pick a different one, you can do that as well. But I want you to keep within this list again. And we're going to do that just because we don't want, we just want to keep things a little bit limited, just so that you are focusing on using the letter forms rather than finding this wild and crazy font, okay? If you want to find a font that you really like, use that, do that in the introduction discussion instead. And for this assignment, we're going to stick to this list of fonts, okay? And then once you have chosen the font, you want to really carefully study the characters and the letters of that font. And then we are going to create a face that has kind of the same personality as the font that you are choosing. And so there are some guidelines right here. You're going to use Illustrator, the dimensions. You can only use characters from the chosen fonts. And then you're going to create a stylized feature of a face. And you do not want to use type on a path to create these lines or fill areas with type as texture. That's another way that sometimes artists can use type to create artwork, but that's not the technique that we're going to be doing in this class. Okay, you want to use the shapes of the letter forms to act as lines, kind of like those animals. You cannot distort or stretch the type in any way, and you are only going to use black and white. You're going to put out the name of the typeface and the chosen font in there, so I know what one you have used. And then you're going to save your Illustrator document so that you have that in case you need to make changes, but also save a PDF to submit. Okay, so there are some benchmark examples here, and I'm going to show you a few more. Okay, so here's one. You can kind of see what happened right there. This one here is actually an example from before this assignment was changed, and that so that's why it's not part of the font is not on that list. But here's another one. Okay. Do you guys want to see a few more, or should we just go to the demonstration first? Let's do the demo, and then I can show you a few more examples. Okay, so following along here with the instructions listed, I recommend that you choose a font from the list and then make a little bit of a description of that, of the personality traits of that font. And then you can type out the different characters of the font and use them. So, and that is going to help you. That's why it kind of helps you if you've already researched the font a little bit for the discussion. But let's open up Illustrator and let me just kind of show you how to get started on this. Okay, so we're going to start with a new document, and 8.5 by 11 is what's listed in the instructions. So you can pick it here, or you can put it into the dimensions right here. And then we're just going to start creating that. All right, so you just have your blank page, and then you can start deciding which font. Now let's just see here. I'm going to let you guys choose the one that we use for our demo. Which one do you guys think we should use out of these? First person to type it in the chat will get to pick. And I hope I have it. Dido. Okay. All right. So first of all, I'm going to take a look at Dido so that I know what it looks like. If you're on a Mac, now I apologize that I'm not as familiar with working on a PC, so I'm not really sure how you can see fonts previous to using them on a PC. But on a Mac, you will have an application that is called Font Book. And if you haven't used that yet, it's pretty handy. You can open it up right here, and it will give you previews of the fonts that you have on your computer. So let's see, hopefully I have Dido on here. There it is, right? So I can either put in my own little message here by using this type tool right here and put in something in here. And, or you can see the letters listed just like so, and go through and kind of see all the shapes of the letters. You can also look at them more, just all the characters that are in here. So this way you can find out, you know, what other kind of marks and characters and things this font has in there. Or again, you can put in a specific sentence and see what that looks like. So this is helpful when you're kind of looking through fonts and trying to figure out which one to use. You can also see the regular, the italicized, and the bold versions. Those are the only three that I have right here, okay? So if we're just looking through this regular version right here, can you guys tell me some kind of the feel that you get from this font? You know, is it modern? Does it feel classic? Does it feel like it's formal or casual? What kind of personality traits would you give to this font? Yes, it's a serif, Kevin, and many times serifs feel a little bit more traditional, but let's just talk about kind of personality things rather than the technical aspects of it. Okay, so it seems a little bit formal, okay? If this was going to be a person, what kind of personality traits would you give it? A little bit stiff. Okay. Rich. All right. Sounds good. So somebody who's a little bit wealthy. Old English. Okay. All right. So you can start with some of those words right there and just type those up over here on the side. So what did we say? Formal and rich and stiff. Let's see here. Anything else that you can think of when you see it? It's kind of anical. Okay, so you're already starting to get some visuals of a face, like with an eyeglass or a monocle, right? So kind of elegant and stylish, perhaps. Okay, and if you I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see these words here. Oops, sorry. I'm going to move this out of the way here. Oh my gosh. Get out of my way. Why is this not getting out of my way? Okay. I'll put it down here. Let's see. Okay, you guys can see those letters a little bit better now. Okay, all right, so we're getting all kinds of other characteristics in here. If you were doing research on the Didot font, you would probably find out that it's used a lot in makeup and fashion industry and things like that. So, you know, that might also give you some ideas. Okay, so but as soon as you have a few words to kind of help you along, then that's going to help you kind of decide what the face is going to look like. And it looks like you guys already are starting to have some great ideas. So now you need to have the letters themselves so you have something to work with, right? So then I would just do a text box and type in all of the letters, locking down your caps and just going through the keyboard. You can even include the punctuation marks in there because you can use all of those. And the numbers, the digits, you can use those. And then the lowercase letters as well, because they have a very different shape, right? And now I'm just typing things in here and I didn't even set the font yet. So that's probably would have been the ideal way, is to set the font first, right? So up here on character, we would go in and instead of Myriad Pro, we'll put Didot, and we're just going to do the regular style. Start with that. Okay, did I put all of the characters in here now? I don't think I did this last row of letters. Okay. All right, so once you have all your characters in here and you've typed it all in, then you want to outline these characters because then you can actually use them as shapes. Okay, so I think I missed a few more letters here. I missed this whole row of letters. Okay, there we go. Now we have a few more characters. So to do that, you just select the text and you go up here to type and you go to create outlines. Now what happens now is that it's no longer a font. It's not going to, if you select it, you will see it doesn't have the font and the type tools up here. Illustrator just looks at this as shapes now, which makes it so that you can manipulate them a lot easier and you can move them around to create your face a lot easier. Now they're automatically grouped together, so you want to go onto Object and ungroup them. And once you do that, you can kind of take each letter by itself and move it around to create that face. Okay, and let me just show you now, before we start creating that face, let me show you a little bit more inspiration on some of these other projects that, I'm going to do one page at a time, that some other students have created. Okay, can you see here what's going on? Right? Just using these different letters as shapes to create a face that you feel has the personality of that font. Okay, you don't have to have a circle around to make the head. You can just put the eyes and a nose, ears and some kind of mouth, and then just the way that the proximity is and how close they are together makes them feel like a face. So it can be pretty abstract, okay? Or it can be a little bit more literal. But looky here, can you see some of the, can you identify some of the characters in here that they've used? Yeah, Kevin's saying like a Q for a monocle, perfect, okay. Upside down exclamation marks for the earrings right here. Number 6 or number 9 for the eyes. Apostrophes, right? Here's somebody who kind of did a monocle, but not with a Q. Commas for these eyes right here. Pretty clever, right? Don't they look fun? Okay, all created just with letter forms. And this one's even a profile, right? See how just the J is the chin right here. Okay, so hopefully that gives you some inspiration. And I hopefully it's, you know, you're going to take some time to work on this, more time than I would spend on it here in the demonstration. But just, you know, just kind of as an idea, if you guys are talking about having a Q for a monocle, for example, pull that Q in. If you need to size it, make sure you hold down Shift so that you're not distorting it. If you don't hold down Shift, then the letter can easily get distorted, and you do not want to do that. That is a very bad thing to do in typography, because these letter forms are specifically designed to be this specific shape so that they, you know, they are proportionate. It's almost like you would distort a photograph if you're distorting the letters. So always hold down your Shift key. Remember that you can go to Object and transform and reflect things if you need to do that. You can even see what's happening to it. You can do that. You can also copy it if you want to, so that you have 2 of them. Okay, one going each way. So that can be used as a monocle, or hey, if we turn them upside down, maybe that little Q can be a built-in eyebrow, right? Okay, and notice how different it looks if you have, you know, which direction these eyebrows are facing. That makes a total difference on the personality of it, right? So I think this way it has a little bit more of a distinguished look to it. I might need a pupil in there, so I'm going to take this little apostrophe, stick it in the middle, and make that an eye in here. Now it almost looks like glasses, right? But then again, I can take that object, transform, reflect, copy, and then I have one for the other side. Okay, notice what a difference it makes if you have it high up or if you have it low down. Makes a difference in kind of the personality of this face a little bit. Something for a nose. You guys have an idea? Maybe the number 4 feels a little nasal, right? And a mouth that kind of has, again, we're talking about somebody who's formal, rich, stiff, elegant, and stylish. So maybe not too crazy of a mouth, but maybe something that is, let's see. Do we have anything here that could be the W, maybe. Okay, maybe a little tiny pursed mouth, upside down. Okay, yeah, they look a little snooty, right? And that's kind of what we're looking for. And I'm thinking maybe I want it to be a little bit more to the side, so they're kind of looking over to the side right here, not cross-eyed. Okay, so here we go. Now we're starting to kind of create a face right here. Now you can add things that represent hair, that represent ears, jewelry, all of those kinds of things. The G kind of looks a little bit like an ear, I think. And again, just kind of move them around and test and see, you know, if you think they look good sideways, or this could actually be a good monocle. Look at that. Now that I see it, if you wanted to do a monocle this way, let's move these off. Experiment with things a little bit and see what you might end up with. Okay, you guys kind of see how that ends up looking a little bit like a monocle there, if that's what you wanted to do. All right, so the proximity of the way that you put your eyes, nose, mouth, and any ears or anything like that that you're doing together will kind of help create that face shape. I'm gonna reflect that one, transform, reflect, copy, so that I have an ear for the other side. Around here somewhere. Or maybe it doesn't need ears. Maybe this one, better to have, you know, a little chin, maybe a little dimpled chin underneath here. Okay, once you have all of your pieces together, make sure that you present it well on the page as also, okay? So once they're all together, make sure that you select all of them together and group them. Command G, or up here in Object and Group. And then you can scale it. I would recommend that you don't make them too large. You kind of want it to have some space around it, because that helps you connect these shapes into a face, kind of. Maybe I'll do something for cheeks in here. Maybe I'll add some hair, maybe something for the neck, right? But we're gonna move on here so that I can go over the rest of the things for you as well. But then at the bottom right here, you also wanna put the name of the font. So it was Dido that we were using. So you wanna put that down here at the bottom, not too large, kind of tasteful down here at the bottom, like it is a portrait. And if I were you, I would also make sure that all of these things are centered in the space. And so I would select this, select your name, and then double check the alignment. Make sure that they align to the center and that it's aligning to the artboard as well. Okay, so click Align to Artboard and then Align to Center. Okay. So now you have your, you would probably take a little bit more time, but you guys get the idea, right? And then you're going to save this assignment. assignment 1 with your name. And you want to save this Illustrator file. Don't save it right away as a PDF. Always have a folder on your desktop where you save all of your original files for your class. Because you might need to go in there and make changes, and if you just save the PDF, you can't do that, okay? So I'm going to do a folder that has my class name in it, and inside of that folder, I'm going to do another folder that's called week 1. Or you can just put them in there randomly, I guess, if you want to. But this is where I'm going to save my Illustrator file so that I have that. And then you're also going to save the PDF to submit. And then all you have to do in Illustrator for that is save as, and then change down here at the bottom to PDF, and then it will automatically have the PDF extension right there, and then you save that. Now in the options right here, you can unclick the Preserve Illustrator editing capabilities because you have the Illustrator file that you can use for editing. I also recommend that you check the marks and bleeds so that it's not selected right here. We don't want to have those printer marks on there. And that you also click the View PDF after saving, because then it will jump up right away so that you can see what it looks like, and if there's any problems with it, you know that before you submit it. So now we're going to save the PDF. And you'll see here it pops up, and we can see what it looks like when it's done. Okay, no color, just black and white, and it doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be really simple. Think about the examples that we saw. Couple of other things I want to show in these. I want to show you a couple more examples. Here's one, New Times Roman. Kind of fun, right? Another one, New Times Roman. Okay, so there's a couple of things here that I'm going to warn against. Notice how the name right here has been stretched. Maybe you guys can't see that, but I can tell that this is taller and skinnier than what New Times Roman looked like. So be very careful here that, you know, you're not stretching the font in any way. Okay, if you need to size it, you have to hold down Shift or just type it in there. Some other things to kind of check out. Make sure that if you have the name at the bottom, center it. You can kind of see how it looks a little bit off, right? It doesn't look as nicely presented if this name is not, like, keep a little distance to it so it's lower down and that it's centered. Presentation counts, you guys. You know, as much as work as you put into this design, if you don't present it well, then it's not going to look as good. The other thing, don't put down, even if you had those names to kind of guide you and give you direction, don't put them on the document itself. We're going to do a little bit of a critique next week, and we're going to look at everybody's faces, and we're going to want to figure this out ourselves. We want to be able to see if they look wise, academic, and intellectual, and not be told, right? So your job is to be able to get that look without having to add the words. So don't put the words on your presentation. If you can't find one of the fonts, pick a different one again. So be sure that you use those specific fonts that are listed. And this is an example of a really cool design, but it is not following the directions of this, or the purpose of this assignment. You can see on this one, right? I mean, it's a really cool design. So I really feel sad when I see somebody put this much work into one of the, into this project, but it is not accomplishing what we're looking for. It might be a little bit, I mean, you can see some of the parts in the face right here, but for most, it's just kind of trying to recreate lines of the Mona Lisa and not using it in a new and original way. Okay, Aaliyah, that's fine. We are going to finish up here in just a few minutes anyway. So, okay. So you also don't want to do text on a path, you know, where you just kind of like write letters on a path or fill in areas with text to create different shapes or shades. All right, so you guys see the difference between this type of an approach and these, right? So we're going to use the letters as shapes themselves, and look at the shape that you have to work with. Okay. Another thing that you can use in addition to the letters themselves is the glyphs. So let me just show you where you find the glyphs, because that's a lot of other characters that you might not find on your keyboard. And they're under type and glyphs. So if you click that, a little window will come up and it will tell you what font it is right down here. And then it will show all of the different characters that are available. And you'll see that there is all of the regular letters and punctuation marks, but then there's other things too, like Greek letters, letters from different alphabets, you know, other kind of symbols, and things like that. So if you want to use any of these, all you have to do is have your text box open and then click on that character. Okay, so there comes that one, there comes that one, there's the Greek, there's the Omega, there is, I wouldn't use the Apple because that's not actually, you know, a font and has the characteristics of this font. I really would like to see you use mostly letter forms, but if there is something in here in the glyphs that you think would be like super helpful, then you can use that as well, okay? So you would just double click those in there, then do the same thing, type, create outlines, or Shift Command O is also outlines, Shift Command G to ungroup, and then you have those different shapes to use there as well. All right, any questions when it comes to the assignment? All right, cool. So the assessment, and I'll go over that real quick here, and then I'll go over it a little bit more in the multi-session this week. But for the assessment, it's basically a test of understanding typographic terms and typographic tools. Okay, so read the background information about type terminology and setting type, and make sure you understand these different words, because you're going to need to understand what they mean to do this assignment. What you're going to do is download this text, and then you're going to set it according to these specifications. Okay, so it's a Word document, and the text is just right here, okay? But you have to take this text, put it in InDesign, and make some changes to the type settings. And most important is that you just read all of the details carefully, okay? You're going to use InDesign. This is the size of your document. You're going to set your margins. You're going to set 2 columns. So some of this is refreshing your InDesign, right? You're going to set a baseline grid. You're going to create a headline, and then the headline, so the headline is this part, right? Where it says the art of typesetting. And this are your specifications: Arial, narrow, bold, 61 point, tracking 10, center alignment. And then you're going to create 4 different paragraph styles, one for the body copy with these requirements, one for a drop cap, one for a subheading, and one for bullets. And then the byline, you're also got specific information right there on what you need to do for the byline, okay? And so if you wonder what it's going to look like when you're done, this is kind of what it will look like. Okay, this is what it should look like when you're done and when you've done setting everything up. I will take a little bit of time in Thursday's multi-session to show you how to get the document set up, where to find all of these different settings, and how to save it. I'm not going to do it, show you exactly how to do it. That's the test part, but I will give you that much information so that if you feel like you're not familiar with InDesign or feel a little rusty on that, I can kind of help you with that part, okay? But other than that, you know, a lot of these other things will be shown you in the pre-recorded lecture, how to set things up in InDesign and that kind of stuff as well, and how to choose these different things. All right, so that is the assessment. Any questions about that? Okay, remember that for the assessment, you're going to submit both the PDF and the InDesign file. So again, you want to read carefully what's required down here at the bottom. Submit the native InDesign file and the PDF. Okay. All right, well, then it sounds like we are ready to let you loose on week 1. Remember that there is help, though, if you feel lost or have a question. Some 24/7 help that you can access anytime, day or night, is the lecture recordings. If you watch those carefully and take notes, there should be everything in there that you need. But then, of course, you can read the assignment specs and the information, the backgrounds, the benchmarks, all of that kind of stuff. There's also that additional media and Linda videos. Make sure you double check the announcements if there's something that you're looking for and wondering about. You can go to those Adobe videos for refreshers, and you can also Google it, of course. If you want one-on-one help, that's available as well. You can make an appointment with our class coach. You can go to the Student Success Center, or you can come to the multi-sessions, including all of the other options. You can email me as well. But just remember that there's only so much help I can give you in an email. The best way to kind of, you know, if you have questions about requirements and things like that, that's fine in an email. But if you need me to show you something, or you're having a problem with the software, we need to meet and share a screen. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Samantha. I hope I see you in the multi-sessions. Like I said, I'll go over that a little bit more demonstration on the assessment in the multi-session. I'll record that and post it, as well as how to be successful and some study schedule tips. I'll record that too for you guys and post that in the announcements after Thursday's multi-session. All right. You guys have a good week and have fun. I'm so looking forward to seeing all of those typeface portraits, and we'll be sharing those in next week's lecture. All right, have a good one, everyone. Okay, no more questions? Just double checking. All right, great. Okay, if you have some, come to the multi-sessions or send me a message. All right, good night.